A lot of life is dealing with your curse. Does it make you into a monster, or can you temper it in some way, or accept it and go in some other direction? Wes Craven, 1. Other than character changes, the origin remains mostly intact. Seeking a bio-restorative formula for more nefarious means, the evil Anton Arcane, Louis Jordan, burns botanist Alec Holland, Ray Wise, alive after the sabotage of his life-changing experiment. Covered in his formula and doused by the surrounding waters, Holland is resurrected as the Swamp Thing. Something no longer human, but rather a muck-encrusted mockery of a man. 3. Although a modern monster, the original saga has always remained, at its heart, a Beauty and the Beast tale. This first on-screen version is hardly the greatest love story ever told. But, in true Gothic fashion, has its moments in reminding us, amongst the noise of the movie's camp comic book action, of the connection between Holland and Alice Cable, Adrienne Barbeau, as we are shown all that is left of his humanity. Gothic beginnings. What is a memory? It is a searing sound of devastation, as you watch the world go up in flames before you. What is memory? It is the gaping wound that once had been your heart, when you learn you are alone. Swamp Thing, The House of Secrets, issue number 92, 1971. Gothic, poetic, tragic, psychedelic, horrific. For just over half a century, the Swamp Thing has evolved from universal monster and B-movie homage to an elemental god. The creature's roots are not of an individual life form, or host, but a legacy of many, proving that this is more than a man and monster, becoming anything, anyone, anywhere. Of course, the late Wes Craven's film is barely any of these things, released at a time when the wonderfully weird character was not only partially formed, but on the cusp of a genuine metamorphosis. In an effort to distance himself from his edgier, exploitative work, Craven now moved towards the mainstream, his contemporary, John Carpenter, leading the charge with a number of genre films, including his own Thing, the same year. Hit or miss, both Craven and Carpenter left the pretense of the European influence behind, reminding audiences of American cinema and its escapist entertainment. In contrast to Carpenter's EC Comics corruption and cinema schooling, Craven was raised in a strict Baptist household. Such material was forbidden, and, therefore, it is no coincidence that the majority of his work, mainstream or not, often explored repression, resulting in an explosion of sexual violence and explicit content, too, pouring onto the screen. Interestingly enough, one of many sins the original comic book series would go on to explore beyond the limits of its pulp influences. Born out of the Bronze Age, Swamp Thing was co-created by writer Len Wein (1948–2017) and artist Bernie Wrightson (1948–2017). The idea for the first story, in which a scientist is murdered by his jealous best friend, came to Wein while traveling on the subway to a pitch meeting. An idea he would refer to as "that swamp thing I'm working on." The name stuck, or simply took root. First appearing in House of Secrets issue number 91, cover dated July 1971, both writer and artist presented a hybrid of Frankenstein's monster and the prehistoric Gill Man framed perfectly as an homage to the Universal monsters and banned EC horror comics of the 50s. This was their childhood, and, regarding Wein himself, pulp material became the perfect medicine for a kid who had suffered from so many physical disabilities. According to his wife, Christine Vallada, her husband had what he called terminal blood poisoning when he was misdiagnosed for an illness in his teens. Deeply scarred from the lancing of the infection that ate away at his flesh, his father told them that if Len was going to die anyway, he'd rather bury him whole. Suffering further illnesses at the time he created the Swamp Thing, therefore, it was no surprise at all that the creature, its soft center dressed in a monstrous exterior, was such a deeply personal character and reflection of Wein himself, the foundations for the DC character literally growing into another of his grisly superheroes.